Breaking news, and this one is almost unbelievable.
Yeah, it's all about new customers at Bet365 because they get $150 in bonus bets when they bet $5, win or lose. And even better, bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, and player props.
There you have it. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. And see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be physically located in Ohio. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. TNCs apply. Available in app only.
Welcome to the MMA Roadshow, episode number 535. My name is John Morgan. Cold Coffee is sort of with me because I can see him way over there, but he's a little bit busy. We'll get to all that in just a moment. So in his place, we have, dare I say, an upgrade. I'm just going to throw it out there. Hopefully he doesn't get too upset when he hears it back. But my man Simon Head has made it over from across the pond. I mean, practically publishing royalty at this point, right? I mean, UFC.com contributor and, I mean, just heading up the effort at the new UFC magazine.
That's very kind of you. And I managed to get my rear-ending gear when it comes to my my timings, having made a complete dog's breakfast of the start of the week.
Well, let me go ahead and say to anybody that was listening to the and a half episode last night, I probably owe you, or maybe not last night, early this week, but I probably owe you a little bit of an apology there.
You do, I heard it.
I wouldn't say I threw you under the bus, but like I definitely perhaps laid your carcass down next to the bus.
And then got in the bus and reversed it over me.
I was wrong. You were right. I originally thought I was picking you up on Sunday night from the airport. It was actually Monday night. But then that's where the miscommunication came in, that you thought you were coming in earlier than you were.
I certainly did not get this 100% correct. That is for sure. I'm normally very good with these things, but I made a complete mess of it. I was supposed to be out with you on Monday night. I did actually get out Monday night and see you guys, but it was way after you'd had your delicious birthday food.
Yes.
And I had to eat bar snacks.
You did, and props to you. Yeah, you made the journey out to our neck of the woods from leaving the beautiful Las Vegas Strip. So props to that. Yeah, we did have a great birthday dinner for Cold Coffee, and it was a lot of fun. And then you and I did a little bar hopping on Tuesday. Very moderate bar hopping. I mean, if anybody's listened to the long and storied history of the MMA Roadshow, we've had some days that qualified as proper bar hopping. This was
not one of them.
No, this was just a light little tour, couple of appetizers, little cocktails here.
Jet lag hit me hard. It home runned me on Tuesday. I was an absolute mess, and I managed to stay out just about long enough to make it socially acceptable, I think. And then after I got back, I just crashed.
Just passed out.
And as you predicted, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning.
I knew it.
And I was like, damn it, Morgan was right.
You made it. Well, you settled in now, and International Fight Week is underway.
Yeah.
We'll talk about all that's unfolded. To tell you where we are right now, we are inside the T-Mobile Arena. The press conference has just gotten over. We have made our way to the upper level, the 200 level of T-Mobile Arena, taking a nice little window seat overlooking Nokia Park right here. Of course, that's the big entrance. Oh, no, wait. Toshiba Plaza, I believe.
There you go.
You got to get the sponsors just right. You know
Is that free TV you're not getting now?
I'm telling you. So we got nice. So you can see the New York roller coaster, and we see the red carpet being set up. Came straight from the press conference, rocked over here, set up. I am not necessarily. Fortunately, without my with my gig the way it is now, I don't necessarily need to get myself on that red carpet because it is usually chaos over there. I'm not gonna lie. We're usually shoulder to shoulder and even more. But, I mean, it's always fun because you get a lot of big names rolling by and you get a lot of opportunities to get nice little sound bites. Of course, everybody that's being honored, we'll talk about that. But then you'll have little guests as well and guest fighters and other things. But for anybody that has ever been on the red carpet or that's going to do the red carpet tonight, salutations and kudos to you because it is it's always a little bit chaotic.
It is a bun fight, as we call it in the UK. I don't know whether that translates, but that's what it is. It's chaos. You have to sharpen your elbows in preparation. And make sure you have to be very territorial with your space.
Do. Although I did hear, I will say, kudos to longtime corporate PR man Brian Smith. I did hear him yelling over there, guys, if it's too crowded, we have an overflow space over here, and you can sit. So our I won't even say complaints. I would say our feedback and suggestions have been listened to, and they've created an overflow area, and it sounds like they're going to try to make it a little better for everybody than past years. So they're trying to help everybody out.
Absolutely, and as you, I'm in a similar boat to you today. Is that the content that I need to bank this week? You alluded to the UFC magazine stuff.
Take it there, man.
All right. this came out of the blue. An old friend of mine from the UK, who has been living in the States for a long time now as a celebrity journalist, has his own publishing company based out of New York. Contacted me. Every now and again he'll message me. Like normally when he sees my name appear in one of the tweets on a UFC show, he goes, "Si, I just saw your name on the telly." I'm like, yeah, that happens sometimes. And but it's probably been like 5 years since I'd heard from him. And then I just got this Instagram message from him, "Si, you need to call me. It's really urgent." And I'm like, "Yeah, all right, I'll call you tomorrow." So no, I need to talk to you now. So I rang him, and it was this opportunity that completely came out of the blue. And it was like he's got the contract for the UFC magazine. They're putting the UFC magazine together. They're bringing it back.
Yeah, because it's been. Do you know how many? It's been several years.
It's been several years. I mean, I actually got to look at an old version of the UFC magazine.
Right.
Very, very much in the mould of the magazines of the time.
Yep.
Very sort of Maxim-ish,
Yep.
sort of lads mag as we used to call them in the UK. This is very different to that. This is much more of the moment, very 2025. Very heavy on the storytelling side of things. So I'll go into that in a sec. But yeah, the opportunity came up, and they basically said that they'd already mentioned that they wanted me to do it. Put the name to the UFC. They're like, yes, we'd be happy for Simon to sort of be involved, and I'm editorial director of the mag. So it means that thank you. I mean, I'm not editing the entire magazine. Like that's very much a collaborative effort between our team and the UFC's brand team, and whoever from the UFC is directly involved in that particular piece of work. So it's very much, it's a lot of collaboration goes on. Obviously, we have to make sure that we are publishing. It is a UFC publication, right? We are contracted to produce that. So making sure that we hit the right tone of voice, the right terminology, the right use of words, all the rest of it. Everything down to...
Octagon must be capitalized.
Octagon must be capitalized.
Things of that nature.
UFC rather than the UFC in a lot of cases.
Right.
Just little
things that's
just little style points that you have to get right, and you get used to it. It's a learning process as you go through it for the first time. But we turned this thing around, the first issue in 2.5 weeks. It's a 100-page issue in 2.5 weeks. And it was hectic, to say the least. Because literally I had a phone call on May the 1st. By May the 7th, we were told, right, we need to start doing stuff now. And I think May 23rd was our copy deadline.
Wow.
That
is not easy. For anybody that's not in the publishing business, that is not easy. That is a quick turnaround.
Yeah. So thankfully, we were able to lean on some people at the UFC. The great Tom Jabasi, legends, has written some fantastic stuff for us. Evie Rodriguez has done an incredible piece.
Nice.
She did a sit down with Natalia Silva.
Okay.
And to my great disappointment, we couldn't run all of it, because if we
trim some of it,
this thing would have run to dozens of pages. It was such an incredible in-depth interview.
So it was just like a transcription, Q&A of the.
Yeah,
nice.
because
she's
of the
a great
time frame.
Well, I was going to say, because I didn't know I didn't know if I'd ever seen her write before, but I know obviously she's been interviewing and things forever.
Yeah, so it's like we were looking at people to sort of include in the first one, and she was just getting ready to fight Alexa.
Right.
And I just had an inkling that it might go her way, and I said, let's tentatively look at doing something on Natalia, because she's got star quality, right? And she's great fun to watch fight, but she's also got this very infectious personality about her. I'd actually just done the UFC.com pre-fight feature for the Grasso fight the week before, so I knew that there was a bigger story to tell there. So contacted Evie and said, would you be interested? She's like, absolutely. And
super cool.
And because obviously Evie and Natalia go back a little way, I think.
Right.
Some of the stuff that we got out of that was incredible. So,
if you don't know, you should know the name Evie if you don't. But if she was with Globo for years and years. Now she works with the UFC directly with the UFC's launch of a network in Brazil on their own. So
yeah, and unbelievably good interview. And this is what I want the UFC mag to do, is to, when people sit down and watch a fight, obviously they learn from watching the promo videos and stuff, but storytelling is absolutely key, right? So 100%. You've got red corner, blue corner, you've got the rankings occasionally. But sometimes you only really know about like their last couple of fights, last 2-3 fights maybe. But when you hear the story where you've got Natalia Silva comes from a town of like less than 5,000 people, and the way that she's got herself into a position where by the time she did the interview with us, she was #1 ranked fighter in the world, and is You see, it's a coin flip between her and Weili Zhang, who's going to fight for the belt next, right?
Absolutely.
So to get from where she was to where she is an incredible story, and I defy anybody to read this interview and not become an instant fan of Natalia Silva.
That's awesome.
So that's the sort of thing that I would like to do. Obviously, there are bigger, well-known names. Obviously, we've got UFC 317 this weekend. We have interviews with both, all 4 title fighters are in that. We've also got fight previews for that. We've also got some opinion pieces in there as well. So we've got various stuff. We've got a great piece on the PI. I had a really good chat with Duncan French, who runs the PI.
Love Duncan.
A fellow Brit, and
great dude.
Yeah. And thanks to you, it wasn't the last time I come over, but it was a few years back. I got a tour of the PI. I think it was before Duncan took over running it, and we got a tour of it. And I used to study sports science, and it was like everything just come rushing back,
right.
And I was just geeking out over all of the incredible facilities they've got there. So when we started talking to Duncan, and it's like, okay, tell us about this altitude chamber, because it looks like something out of a science fiction movie. It's like this dome. It's like a circular sort of. It's basically a sphere,
right?
With like portholes in it, like a submarine, and you can go in there, and it will take you from sea level to the top of Mount Everest in terms of the altitude conditions in like 15 seconds. That's mad.
It's crazy.
So what I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to explain to people what this that this technology exists, B, how the UFC have got it, C, how it works physiologically in the body, like in layman's terms, without it becoming too much of a sports science lesson, and then maybe a few case studies on the people who are using it. So we've got some great stuff there from Duncan French on that.
Man.
So it's just trying to piece some of these things together, whether it's building up big fights, trying to lift the lid on some fighters who maybe, it'd be great to learn a bit more about them. And then we've got some fun stuff like fighters talking about their first fight, their walkout music, all that sort of stuff.
That's cool,
all that sort of good stuff.
Well, it's fun because, I'm with you. Storytelling in the sport is everything to me. Like, that's how you identify who you cheer for, who you root for. Especially, I think it's very important with like American fighters, especially look at like somebody like this week, like Ilia Topuria. Like the population of Spain is going to identify that's our guy. Obviously, Georgians with him, Merab Dvalishvili. Like, it's different when you're like somebody comes and they represent that nation, right? But like Brazil, where there's just tons of them on the roster, like Americans, where there's tons on the roster. It's like, you need to know about them. Like, you have to identify with them in some way, I think, to really become a fan of them. You kind of relate to them in some way, or something about their story kind of does it for you. But it's tough on like fight week. You know what I mean? Like, maybe their first fight weekend, but even that's tough because they're cutting weight and they're trying, and their mindset is so different. You know what I mean? They don't want to sit down and do a 45-minute interview with you talking about their childhood and whatever. They're like, bro, I'm trying to get ready for a fight on Saturday night. So when you can do that, I think that's awesome. And that's cool that you guys are doing that. But, and you kind of laid on it too, and I used to contribute a little bit to the old UFC magazine. I did a couple of pieces here and there, not a ton. Fighters Only magazine for years and years when it was actually a print edition. Did a lot of stuff there as well. But that is the one thing about the print side of things that's tough, right? Is that, like, you try to do something that's going to be relevant, and maybe you put a lot of effort into a story of somebody that ends up losing, or they get pulled out of a fight, or there's an injury. Like, that's such a tricky little part of what you're going to be doing with that magazine moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've talked so many times on this pod before about how agile the UFC is as an organization and how they're able to plug and play different people into different positions when things go, a little bit sideways. But when you're dealing with print journalism, and I come from print journalism background anyway, like, you have what you have when it comes the time that you say, you go to print. That's what you've got, and you could send it, and then 30 seconds later you could be told half of what you've written is now dead because it's tough. You can't do anything about it.
Canceled.
It's gone. You can't do anything about it. So that is the only tricky thing. So you have to kind of build sort of contingencies in where you can. But yeah, it's great because I still get, obviously, like, I'm less on the what I would call like the media side now. I'm more on like the brand side. So I'm the editor-in-chief of RDX Sports, which is anybody in combat sports probably is aware or has seen their gear.
Khalil Roundtree recently
signed as a brand ambassador for them.
Thought that was cool.
So I do produce like news articles and stuff for them as well, but there's a lot of sort of behind the scenes brand sort of stuff I'm working on with them as well now. And doing a weekly podcast with them just to kick things along every week or so. But the main thing now is that I've always wanted to tell, like the reason I got into writing about MMA from day one was that I felt it was a sport that deserved coverage and it wasn't getting any. And I just felt that these athletes deserve to have their stories told. And that was back in 2009. And between 2009 and now, that sort of storytelling aspect in the media has kind of had its day. It got to the point where we've got to what I call the clickbait era, where people online who are publishing, they have to make their money in order to keep the lights on. And the way to do that was to sell advertising revenue and inventory online.
Yep.
And the way that advertising is sold online is based on page impressions. So you've just got to hit whatever clicks. And that might not necessarily be the best sports coverage.
Right.
It'll just be the stuff that gets the most reader attention. And sometimes when it comes to like normal news or sports news or whatever, sometimes the most important stuff isn't the most read stuff. And that's where you've got that real sort of disparity there. And as it's gone along, I've found that the things that I like to do have become few. The opportunities to do it become fewer and freer. And so when this opportunity came up to do this, and when I went freelance and I got the chance to write for UFC.com, like I absolutely leapt at it. So
that's awesome.
So yeah, so I get to do a lot of stuff for UFC.com now. I'm doing a lot of UFC BJJ stuff, which is great.
Right.
And a lot of UFC.com stuff. I've got a Ilia Topuria feature on UFC.com now, leading into this weekend. There should be a Alexandra Pantoja one dropping either today or tomorrow, I think, if not live already. And I do a couple of those every week. We've got the magazine. We don't know what the publishing cadence is going to be yet.
Right.
It might be just around sort of the big ticket shows. We're not sure. We'll see how it goes. But I'm super, super pleased to be able to do it. And it's, I'm delighted to be asked.
I'm looking forward to checking it out. I haven't had a chance to go pick one up yet and look at it, but
I haven't seen one live yet.
Yeah, I've
seen a PDF. I haven't seen one live in the wild.
It's not quite the same as you pick it up and hold it in your hand and see it in PDF.
I can't wait to get my mix.
I look forward to checking it out. Yeah, it's funny, as you were describing it. Like I always try to stop myself short of, I don't like to criticize the MMA media space so much because I never want it to be like, the guy was an MMA junkie forever. Now it's sour grapes or whatever. But it's just the truth, man. It's a shame. Like it's. I feel like so much of the MMA media space is away from passion and doing what you care about because you got to hit those numbers and you got to everybody's owned by a corporation who just all they're measuring you by is what's your year-over-year percentage growth, what's your, what I mean. And so it's like, we got to do this and now we got to make a story gallery so that it creates more just all these little publishing tricks and whatever so that it creates the appearance of more page views and now let's put the autoplay video here but then also the insert video here and the whatever. It's like, oh my god, like have we kind of lost sight of like that was the thing that I always wanted. Is like I wanted Junkie during my time there to be like the site that me as an MMA fan, like that's my Bible, that's my go-to, that's where I want to go every day. And like, but I get it, like if you're owned by a corporation, it is a business and they're going to measure you by clicks and they're going to measure you by financial success. And I always hated that aspect of it because I used to joke, it's like what did Conor McGregor have for breakfast today? Let's make sure we post whatever he said on Instagram about that because that's going to get news. And it's going to be Conor McGregor breaks his silence about the shocking breakfast that was delivered to him today. It's just like, oh, come on.
I remember I was writing for a national newspaper at the time and I had spent hours getting an interview, writing an interview, prepping an interview, conducting the interview, transcribing the interview, writing the interview up, publishing it, and the numbers it got were dwarfed by a Conor McGregor iPhone case story.
That's it.
Actual true story. And he had like a diamond encrusted iPhone case or something, and that did gangbusters numbers. Mm-hmm. And my painstakingly produced, relevant, but very niche, clearly interview didn't do. And now, two different audiences because I would say 99.5% of the people who read the Conor McGregor story weren't MMA fans.
Right.
But because there's so many people who aren't MMA fans who are looking at this stuff, that's how they get their numbers, that's how it works, and it's just economics at the end of the day. But it's a shame that there isn't a trade-off somewhere. It's like, I remember when they launched The Athletic.
Yeah.
And the quality of the work that appears on that site, and still does, but you look at the diversity of it now compared to when it launched, it's a fraction of what they launched with. They had every sports vertical covered, quality long-form writing, good event coverage, reportage, all that sort of stuff. And it was everything, but it wasn't sustainable.
Because people don't want to pay for it.
It was a utopian idea, right? And
Right.
it was, in the end, they had to start cutting off some of the other, some of the sports that maybe weren't driving the biggest numbers. MMA was one of the early casualties of that.
Yep.
Which was a real shame for the people who were hired at the time, because they were some of the best writers in the sport.
Yep.
But that's just the way this is. So being able to move across, sort of jump the fence a little bit, because I was looking at PR jobs and stuff a year or so ago,
Right.
thinking, is my time doing this kind of gone? Do I need to move into PR? But thankfully, these things have come up, and I couldn't be happier. You know, I've still got my toe dipped in the media thing just a little bit, but I get to cover the sport in the way that I think it should be covered, and the way that the stories that I think should be told. I've got the opportunity to tell those stories and ask the questions that I think people will be
That's
interested
awesome.
to hear about. So, yeah, I'm delighted. I mean, we'll see. Hopefully it's well received, and it grows. Obviously, the first one's always the hardest one to get done.
Right.
We've got that
Now
done
you've
now.
got systems. You've got
And now hopefully we build from here. But yeah,
That's
really
awesome, man.
happy, and looking forward to seeing it in the wild at UFC X tomorrow.
I love it. We'll pick one up tomorrow. Yeah, it'll be there at the UFC X. They'll have it on.
Fingers crossed. I'm told they're selling it there. Yeah.
Nice.
It's also on sale online on the UFC store.
Right.
Plug. And I believe they're going to be selling it at UFC 317 as well.
And if you'll put the link Simon Head as the discount code. No.
Oh, imagine that. If I had a little affiliate code, that'd be lovely.
All right, listen, we will talk about some UFC 317, of course. We just saw the press conference. But you did touch on UFC BJJ. You're intimately involved with it. Wanted to get some initial impressions from you, because I got to say, obviously, we got to see the live event last night. I had watched, I'll be honest, I did not watch the last 2 episodes of the reality show.
Right.
It just got busy, but I was keeping up with it. And obviously, I knew the results coming in and all that. But I thought the reality show was, I mean, obviously, it's an Ultimate Fighter knockoff, but it's a system that's worked very well for them. And it's introducing some new characters and new ideas, new people. The belt was, received in various degrees of warmth. Some people loving it, some people hating it. I think, I'll be honest with you, when they rolled out the new UFC belt, I remember initially just being kind of jarred and being like, and now I look at the new UFC belt. And
Fear
I'm
the
just like,
change, John.
yeah,
Fear the
it's just,
change.
you know what I mean? Like, you just get used to it. The BJJ belt at first, I was like, whoa, I don't know if I like that or not. But then the more I saw it last night, like up on the dais and people were holding it, I was like, it is kind of cool. So anyway, UFC BJJ, I guess just wanted to get your overall impressions and not just the effort, I guess, of the UFC to launch into BJJ, but the competition surfaced, which, Mikey Musumeci, I think, said, hey, look, I know Craig Jones said we stole his idea. We didn't. And I did think he made one very important differentiator about how there's not a corner.
Yeah.
And that is a big differentiator.
You get your ankle caught in that.
Yeah, and also the fact that it slowly, gradually curves up. If you go listen to Mikey Musumeci talk about it, I thought it was pretty smart, because that is true too, right? Whereas like it's a slow curve up, so instead of just the immediate back on it, like that causes issues. So I like that, but I'm just gonna be honest with you, like the setup of the Apex itself. I know you haven't spent a ton of time in the Apex. Obviously, I've been in there a lot. The way they had it set up last night for UFC BJJ is the way that they had it set up, more or less, although the surface was different, of course, because it was raised for when they did Power Slap events inside the Apex. Now they're doing them at the Fountain Blue. That'll be on Friday night. So they haven't done one there in a while. But even the first time they did a Power Slap, I was like, this setup feels a lot better. And I think it's something about just the height in the room, makes the room feel less big and empty. So I don't know. I just want to get your thoughts, I guess, on the whole experience, because I feel like the Apex, I mean, I know they're in the middle of big changes. Like I'm sure you saw all the big exterior changes.
Yeah.
I mean, the Apex is getting closer. That renovation is getting closer and closer to being done. But I'm anxious to see the way they set up the UFC, because I know everybody gripes about the UFC in there. Me and Cold Coffee always say, sorry, we can't gripe because it's 15 minutes from our house and sure it's awfully convenient. Probably spoils the way we look at it a little bit. But I admit it feels a little flat. And I've sat both on press row, I've sat in the audience, and it does feel a little flat in there. Like, I'm going to be the first one to admit that. But I felt like last night, even though I don't think there were more people in there for BJJ last night than there are for most UFC events, it felt better. Like, I don't know, something about the whole setup just felt like kind of bigger. And I hope they're taking some lead on that for UFC.
Yeah, I've been there for a Fight Pass Invitational before, I think. And that was all, basically, everything was floor seating, I think, if I remember rightly then. And you've got you had a raised competition area with a mat. So that, there was obviously the possibility of like the fighters falling off the end. So you had people sort of ready to sort of push them back on again. But that was my last experience. I've never actually seen the UFC hold an MMA show at the Apex. I've never been here for one. But I went in the arena yesterday, and I thought it was great. Obviously, where we were kind of elevated as well. But then even the people who were sat in front of us were also elevated as well. So everybody was at least the equivalent of a couple of steps up from the floor level, you know. And you needed to be because of the nature of the fighting surface anyway. But I thought it worked. I thought it worked really well. I don't know how you prevent it from still being slightly tricky when they're running for a takedown and they still go at the wall and it doesn't stop them. There was one instance. One instance where they nearly went straight off the end. And I don't know how you stop that other than putting some plexiglass around like a flipping hockey rink, which is not going to work really. But you've got.
I say you don't stop it. Tell me that's not going to bring excitement when they just go plummeting off the side.
Just get some of that. What is it? The old soft play stuff, all that foam stuff around the edge, so they can fall into that, like when they're learning to do trampolining and stuff, you know. But no, I thought it worked really well, and there were some situations. I think it was the light heavyweight match, which was quite an aggressive match. You know, both of them I think had quite heavy wrestling bases to them, so there was a lot of takedown attempts going on, and there were times where one's being driven backwards, and then they almost felt like the gradient of the bowl, which is what we have to call it, capital B, I believe. And then they started to pivot and they sort of went round in circles, almost like wall of death, you know.
Right.
But it worked. I thought it worked really well. And the thing that I enjoyed about the overall event was we had, I think, 7 out of 8 submissions.
Yes.
We had.
That's what people want to see.
So you want to see submissions. I think what would even add to that would be more diversity in approaches. There's a lot of leg lock attacking going on, which that is a very effective way of winning a jiu-jitsu match. And people have specialisms, right? And it's very difficult to defend once you've got it locked in. So you've got that, and it's easier to defend against a choke, for example, than it maybe is to defend, because once you've got a heel hook in, as soon as you know you're in trouble, that's you're done. So
I'm glad you said this, because I was thinking about this today, right? And I had a great time with it. And I'm a big submission grappling fan. Like, I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, grappling as a whole. Obviously, at CFFC, we do submission grappling events. I love them. They're fun. So I feel like I'm part of the niche audience that enjoys grappling, right? But I'm thinking to myself big picture and growth and potential and all that. And, like Mikey Musumeci, love him, right? Like, what a character. You know what I mean? Like, what a unique individual. You can't listen to the guy talk and not just be like, what? This dude's a badass? Like, what? You know what I mean? And he's just funny, and he shoots straight, you know, which I like, but he's just an interesting character. But, like, I will say, and again, I mean this in the most respectful way possible, as a fan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as a fan of submission grappling, but I agree with you. Like, I almost feel like the just excessive leg entanglements are going to be difficult. I mean, if you're only marketing to the grappling crowd, then that's what they're used to seeing anyway, because that's what we're seeing at every level. But if you're trying to get that crossover audience, I almost started thinking, like, do you give them like a limit on the time they can look for leg entanglements? Or I don't know what the fix would be. I was trying to think about that today, about like what you could, because that's kind of weird if you're like, oh, well, here's your leg attack, and now I'm counting to 5, and you have to let it go or something. I don't know. It's weird, but but I agree. So I'm glad you had the same observation, because that's what I felt too.
I think it's one of those where it's obviously like, you take Mikey as an example. He's an expert at that particular technique.
Unbelievably.
It's like you wouldn't put Francis Ngannou in an MMA fight. It's like, right, okay, you're not allowed to knock him out.
Yeah. Do
you know what I mean? So
no right hands.
No, exactly. Right. So
only one right hand around. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, the only way you can do it, I think, is if you have different types of rule sets for different matches. But then you start to dilute the product.
Yeah.
And that detracts from the overall thing as well. So I think this is just one of these things where the sport will evolve over time, and does. You know, jiu-jitsu never stays the same. So there will always be, you know, like someone will come in and they will be an absolute, you know, they'll be like the best in the world at sort of, you know, taking the back and locking up chokes, or someone will be an arm lock specialist, or, you know, an arm bar specialist, or, you know, Kimura specialist, you know, whatever it might be. And you've got people coming in with a strong wrestling base. So a lot of their work will end up from the guard, and then they look to progress from the. So everyone's got different approaches. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I don't think it's a problem that needs fixing. I just think that the more variation in styles that you can have featured would be for the betterment of the brand over time. Because what you don't want is, like say you've got like 20 fighters on the card, or 20 grapplers, I suppose you would call them, on the card, and they're all doing the same thing.
Right. You got the same match over and over.
It's just rinse and repeat. You don't want that.
Definitely not.
Right. And it's the same like when you watch an MMA fight. There's so many ways to win and lose an MMA fight. There's so many ways to win and lose a jiu-jitsu match. So it's just having that mix of different styles.
That's a good point.
Having that clash of styles. You might have a leg lock specialist versus a wrestling specialist who's going to maybe specialise more in sort of front attack, headlocks and that sort of thing. So I don't know. It was just something I noticed it from because I did the recap for UFC.com, and I noticed myself using the word leg entanglement quite a lot.
Right.
And was kind of stopping myself and trying to come up with different ways of describing basically.
Yeah.
But this is event 1.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I think for an event 1. And the thing,
it was fun.
And like the thing I said, going back to the magazine, and the thing I told the guys on the magazine is that if we do this right, this will be the worst one we do.
It's a great way to put it.
Right? This will be the worst one we do because we will have learnt stuff from this one that will make the next one better, and then the next one better, and then the next one better.
It's a great way to put it.
And that's the way. The first time you do something should never be the best time you ever do it. Otherwise, you aren't paying attention to what you're doing.
The other thing that dawned on me too, and I think part of it was watching the reality show. And then part of it was just thinking, and maybe it's just because now with my new role, with CFFC and kind of thinking more from, that side of things or whatever. Number one, everybody had, I guess in the beginning when I thought UFC BJJ, I thought their idea was, because we all know that even though, the UFC does not exist without Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, obviously. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu got it started. But we know the casual MMA fan isn't a fan of grappling. We hear it all the time, and when we sit inside this beautiful T-Mobile arena, and as soon as the action hits the ground, people start booing, and you hear stand 'em up, and everybody wants to see stand up. So in my head, I'm like, well, they're trying to get this big MMA fan base and switch them over to also being grappling fans as well. And I think, number one, from watching the reality show and hearing the stories of guys, a lot, because you start to realize how much, and you start to think, and it's just logical, how much more participation there is in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, for instance, like my son. My son has been training since he was 4 years old. Has zero interest in ever being a fighter. Obviously, I have zero interest in ever asking him to pursue being a fighter. You know what I mean? But he participates in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so he's going to know a lot more about that than he really does fighting. So there's a ton of people that way, right? There's a ton of people that can relate to it more. And even watching those athletes, you heard a lot of them that were like, I trained, and some of them are like, attack it even. Like, I've done a little striking, maybe I'll fight someday, but not really. It's grappling as their passion. So I guess I started to realize maybe I've been looking at it wrong, and that they're not really trying to get MMA fans and turn them on to BJJ. It's just like, let's get all the existing grappling fans who have been in all these like splintered off little pieces, and they're ADCC fans, they're IBJJF fans, they're CJI fans, they're Fight to Win fans, all the different, who's number one, all the different, CFFC, all those, and it's just like, okay, but let's build a hierarchy where, you can still have all those things in the same way that you have developmental regional MMA organizations around the world, but we all know that everybody wants to be in the UFC, and that's what this can really become too. And the audience, the athlete base, it doesn't really need to cross over that much. It can be completely separate.
No, exactly. I think like an obvious example to explain that would be Power Slap, right? Right? Could not be further from MMA.
No.
As a sporting event, right? You look at the fan base, there's probably a crossover, right? But do you need to be an MMA fan to watch Power Slap?
Absolutely not.
Right,
and I struggle to find many MMA fans that are. Most of them will be like, I'm appalled by this. I'm disgusted.
Well,
by this.
there's two diametrically opposed rules that underpin both sports, right? One of them is you must intelligently defend yourself at all times, and the other one is you're not allowed to intelligently defend yourself at any point. Right?
That is pretty funny to put it that way.
Right?
Like, sir, that is a foul. You were intelligently defending yourself.
You flinched. You flinched. I will be terrible at Power Slap because I flinch at everything. Right? I'll be no good. Right? But no, they are distinctly different things, and Dana has built this ecosystem for it. Whether you like the sport or don't like the sport, he has built this ecosystem for it, and it's working within its bubble, right? You don't have to be a boxing fan to like MMA. You don't, some people like MMA don't like boxing. Some people like boxing detest MMA. So, but it's possible to like more than one thing.
Right.
So, and it's the same with jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is just one component of mixed martial arts. So is judo. There's not a lot of people queuing up to watch judo, right? It's in the Olympics, and I try and watch it. It's all right, but it struggles with like lack of activity. It's just a lot of tie-ups and things like this. Wrestling. If you're not fully ingrained in the whole, if you're not from the United States or Russia or Tajikistan or someone or somewhere, you're going to probably struggle to get into that as well. Like, I honestly, I don't think I've ever sat and watched an entire wrestling. I need to watch one of your CFFC matchday events.
You should.
Because I haven't yet gotten into that yet.
Right.
And I might watch that and go, okay, I understand this now. But I might also go, I don't know, it's not my cup of tea. But these are all different component parts of MMA. So if you are an MMA fan, there's a chance you might like boxing. So Zuffa boxing could be for you. There's a chance you might like jiu-jitsu. So UFC BJJ might be for you. And so on and so on.
Chance you might like skateboarding, so Thrill 1 might be for you. Like they got a little bit of everything, right?
There you go. But it doesn't have to be tapping into the same audience. I think the idea is you bring another audience over, and then you look to cross-pollinate to make so the rising tide lifts all ships sort of approach. But I thought for a first event, I thought it went really well.
I don't think they could have asked for better.
I thought the staging was great. We were fortunate enough to be sat feet away from the commentary team. I thought Michael Chiesa smashed it out of the park yesterday, as I thought he did at the Fight Pass Invitational previously.
Yeah, Chiesa's fantastic.
I know he's wanted to get into the booth in general, and maybe the opportunities to do it in MMA haven't been there for him. He's been on the desk and done a lot of desk stuff, hasn't he? But now he's in the booth for UFC BJJ, and he's showing just how good he is. I thought he was absolutely brilliant.
Dean Thomas, fantastic
and Dean
as well.
Thomas, you plug him in wherever, and he also brings some humour to the proceedings as well, which is great. But he's not just comedic value. He's been there, seen it, done it. He coaches one of the best submission specialists in MMA.
He's an old school black belt himself. So
you know what I mean? So
I do. I thought it was a home run for them. Like you said, I love the way you said that. Like, if you do it right, that's the worst one you ever do, right?
It should be, yeah.
And you build from there. I dig it. All right, let's talk about UFC 317. Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. Lightweight title is on the line. Ilia Topuria, the former featherweight champ, undefeated, representing two nations, got all kinds of swagger. I ran into his dad outside as I was waiting to get in the press conference today. I don't know that it was his dad for a fact, but there's no way it wasn't his dad.
Was he wearing like white linen?
White linen suit. He had a white linen suit on. He was about the same height, exact same face.
Tight fade.
Wasn't quite lightweight. You know what I mean? Wasn't quite lightweight. But us older gentlemen, it happens. But I mean, literally,
that's
like
the tapas. That's
spitting
the tapas.
image, man. Spitting image. So that was kind of funny. But Ilia Topuria, budding superstar. Charles Oliveira, of course, the seasoned star, the man that we've seen grow up in front of our face. That, I mean, as I said at the press conference today, has been in the UFC since before Ilia even had his first professional fight. That's unbelievable, the level he's been at. The Charles Oliveira, the man that's had different eras, the featherweight era, the era of, we thought he was a quitter, a guy that, gave up in certain things. And, I mean, just unbelievable. He's had this tumultuous championship run, being stripped at the scale with some bizarre circumstances around it where, I talked to a lot of people that said in that time away, like he went to his room, he continued to sweat, he peed, and yet somehow came back and weighed exactly the same. How does that work? All this stuff, some setbacks, and now he's here. It's a big moment. It's International Fight Week. It's either Ilia Topuria becoming a second division champ after taking out the legends of the featherweight division, or it's Charles Oliveira, who's this incredible fan favorite, winning another title. And, I mean, the stardom that he has, the excitement, the buzz around him, it's big, right? It's a big fight. Stylistically, the way they match up is fantastic. Ilia Topuria, I believe his power will absolutely translate to 155 pounds. The technique that he has, it's not like he's been some kind of like just one-shot lucky. I mean, he's got incredible technique. I think the grappling gets interesting. Ilia Topuria is a great submission artist, but he's like, I think I can grapple with Charles Oliveira. Like, I don't know if you want to try that. I probably wouldn't risk it. So I love it. I love a lot about this fight. And generally, I love respect between fighters. But I don't know, man. And again, I'm excited about it. The last thing I want to do is sit here and be like, oh, you shouldn't tune into this fight. You should. There's so much on the line. I just wanted I wanted a little tension today. We didn't get that. And also, like, Ilya is this dude that has all this swag about him. He's got, like, he walks in the room and you're just like, if you don't know who he is, you've never seen him before, you're just like, that's a cool-ass cat right there. Like, what that dude does? You know what I mean? He's just got some. But, man, I feel like he hasn't. And we talked to him last week at the UFC PI, and I thought his interview was great. You know, we did a little media session. Yesterday at Media Day, today at the press conference, I feel like there's just a little bit lacking to really get that spark, right? Like everybody's trying, this is the new star, this is the next big thing. And we didn't get tension in the face-off. We didn't get any, like, lines that I'm walking away going, oh, can you believe he just said that?
No.
It's just like, there's just a little something missing for me.
Yeah, I think the most animated he got was whenever the name Islam Makhachev was mentioned. And
Habib was brought up, and he's like, I don't care what Habib. You know?
No, I think Ilya is legitimately pissed that he moved up from featherweight to lightweight, and almost immediately Islam moved up or announced he was moving up from lightweight to welterweight. Now you can't hate on it because it's two fighters doing exactly the same thing, but clearly, I think Ilya wanted to not just win the lightweight.
You can't criticize
belt.
one without like if you think it's a bad move for one, you have to say it's a bad move for both.
Right now, I think Ilya didn't just want to win the lightweight belt. He wanted the number one pound for pound spot. He wanted to beat Islam to do it. I think he wanted to go in there. He wanted to take the title from Islam and announce himself as
the guy,
El Numero Uno at the top, right? And he's not been given that chance. So now he's got Charles Oliveira, who is a very difficult person to hate on.
Yeah.
Right, because he's as respectful as they come. He's been there. He's been through, as you said, he's had this roller coaster of a career. He lost the title on the scale. And I think, if I remember that weekend, there were other fighters who had issues on the scale that weekend. So there was some. There was
very much like a commission issue. And I don't want to talk bad about it.
Whether it's a commission issue or a calibration issue or whatever it was.
Or the calibration of the commission.
Whatever it was, things were not quite on point as they usually are, and he suffered for that.
Yep.
And then he went and he went and made a statement win against Gaethje, but he didn't have the belt. He went to fight for the belt again. He couldn't beat Islam, and then off it went. Ilya versus Oliveira on paper, forget everything else, is an absolutely outstanding fight.
It is. Just
an outstanding,
two martial artists.
Stylistically, it is. I can't see how this isn't going to produce an exciting fight and probably a finish in the first 2 or 3 rounds. Right. But yeah, the lack of sort of beef, if you want, I think that's down to the fact that Topuria is already looking past it in the most respectful way that I can mention it. Not that he doesn't like. He went almost as far as to say that Charles was delusional to think that he could finish him.
Right.
I think he said. I don't speak very good Spanish, but he said imposible, which I think means impossible.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Rough translation.
I'm picking it up. But yeah, so like he does not fancy Oliveira's chances at all. I think if the fight goes to the mat and Oliveira ends up on top, I think those chances increase significantly.
I do too.
Right? He's sub 21 people in his career, and he's probably put a few black belts away among them. And Topuria is very, very good on the ground. He's very good on the ground, but Charles Oliveira is elite on the ground. So and he's got the skins on the wall to prove it. But I think if Charles comes as advertised, both by Charles and by Ilya, because they both said that he's going to do the same thing, which is he's just going to walk forward and look to take him out, then I think he's walking straight into the danger zone. The thing with Ilya and his striking, right? You watch a lot of people who are sort of noted knockout artists. They fall in love a little bit with their striking,
right? And
they get caught overreaching. And I remember this when Dan Hooker beat Gilbert Burns. He'd even said in the lead up, Gilbert's fallen in love with his power, and he was making Gilbert overreach, and then he made him pay with shots of his own, and he eventually got the win. Topuria doesn't do that.
No.
Topuria, you watch Topuria's shot. It's not just power, it's torque.
Yep.
He never hits you at the very end of his punches. It's sort of comes around in an arc and he hits you with the full force of what he has.
Yep.
Watch the knockout of Jai Herbert. One of the most vicious, and that was at 155 pounds.
That's right.
And that is one of the most vicious knockouts you will see in the UFC. But also watch what happened in that fight earlier. And this is why I'm interested in this fight, because Jai Herbert is not Charles Oliveira.
That's correct.
Jai Herbert, former Cage Warriors champion, solid fighter, not an elite UFC level fighter. He had Topuria on skates earlier in that fight. He had him in a little bit of trouble earlier on, and when they went back to their corners at the end of that round, we were looking at each other going, okay, this gets interesting. And then Topuria came out and absolutely melted him with an incredible shot. Topuria has obviously gone on and done incredible things since. But that little sort of window of vulnerability has been exposed there, and I wonder whether that's something that Oliveira will look to exploit on Saturday, because there's been very little sign of it since.
Yeah.
That's literally the only thing, and that Topuria is going in there with a bigger, stronger guy who can finish you. So it's that at some point you get to a stage where the power catches up with you.
Yep.
But yeah, then I'm starting to meander a little bit with this. But
no, but it's
the issue is that.
I mean, that's what makes this fight so intriguing, though, stylistically. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like, even take my criticisms away. You know what I mean? Like, okay, consider them, but take them away and just boil it down to the fight. The fight is amazing. That's what I'm saying. Like, I almost feel bad saying it. I just feel like for some reason it's weird, because I don't know if I've ever felt this, where I'm so excited stylistic about the fight. And you know what? Maybe it is just the fact it's such a weird time, right? Like, Ilya gives up his title, moves up. The champ at 55, Islam gives up his title, moves up. We just had John Jones retire. It's like the belt used to mean everything, and now it's like, well, I'll give this one up to go chase that one. It's just this is a weird time right now, so maybe that's it. But I don't know that I've ever been this excited about a fight and yet feel a little bit empty for some reason.
It's a weird one. I mean, the thing you mentioned about both Ilya and Islam vacating, I think they both deserve immense credit for that, because we have seen in the past people who have sat on titles,
held up a division. Like, look at what Tom Aspinall's been doing with this interim belt, just sitting on it, right? Not giving anybody
longest standing interim. We'll have a word with him about that if we see him this week. Just squatting on that interim title.
I just hate when guys do that, man. Let somebody else have a crack at your interim belt.
Deary me. Disgrace.
But yeah, I don't know
what I mean. Like, I think,
and again, I've said from the beginning, and I'll echo what you said. You can't criticize one without criticizing the other. Like, if you're like, Islam ran from Ilya, we're like, well, did Ilya not run from 45? He only defended it once. You know what I mean? Neither ran at all. No. But I'm just saying, you can't pick and choose one or the other and criticize one or the other. But I don't know. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I think they both deserve credit for not. Because if Islam had said, I'm going up to 70, but I'm keeping the 55 belt, I'm just not going to defend it for a bit.
Yeah.
You imagine being here this weekend and having this as an interim title fight.
To me, you're only allowed to me, and I know that I think, was it Ilya that said that he had heard that the UFC wasn't. We haven't really asked Dana about that much. Dana hasn't been around that much, but about their kind of discouraging two-weight champions, whatever. You know what I mean? And I wholeheartedly agree they should. To me, the only way that you should say I'm going for two belts is if, okay, you are firmly committed to defending each belt twice a year. You have to fight every 3 months. Sorry, and I know that's a lot for titles. I know it's a lot for a championship fighter, but if you're trying to do two, you got to let both divisions work, and we need at least 2 fresh challengers a year, so you got to fight every 3 months. You know what I mean?
You could also put another stipulation in if you wanted to be really sort of make people earn it. Say, right, you have to have defended your belt 3 times before you...
100%.
You know?
Yeah.
Because in a lot of sports, if you retain or win something 3 times, you win it outright.
Right.
Like, if you win the World Cup 3 times, you get to keep it. Right? And things like that. So if you defend the title 3 times, you've won that title quote unquote outright. Then you have the right to then move up. Or
I like that.
Or you become a super champion. I mean, we don't want to introduce more belts.
Yeah, we don't want to introduce more belts, but I know what you're saying.
Do you know what I mean?
So I
think that then it means that it means the window's open for it to happen, and it means that when it does happen, it's special.
Yep.
Because it's earned. Do you know what I mean? But the other thing I wanted to mention about this fight, because I'm sure you want to talk about the flyweights as well, is the weigh-in. Tomorrow is going to be massive, and Ilya Topuria is moving up from 45 to 55. He has no problem, right? It would be the biggest shock in MMA history if Topuria missed weight tomorrow.
That would be bad.
Right? He has been very, very relaxed and happy in the lead up to this fight. He's normally quite narky and grumpy leading into fights, typically. But he's said that, this is the most happy and relaxed he's ever been. All is well. Charles Oliveira... We just come from the press conference. Charles Oliveira looked dry as a bone sitting up there. His cheeks were sunken in. And earlier in the day, he posted a picture on his Instagram of him, what appeared to be... I just hope that this was from a previous fight, but I don't think it is. Him seemingly cutting weight already, with all of his team laying hands on him and seemingly praying together as a team, right? And he's making the point that this is my family, we're all in this together and so on.
But we look at the image and I'll say that does not look good.
This is 2 days out from a weigh-in, or sort of 24 hours out from a weigh-in.
He didn't look good up there today.
And he sat up there.
I mean, he never does look good.
He never looks great.
Right.
But I just looked at him and I thought, yeah, it was a bit Skeletor-ish. Do you know what I mean? It's like his cheeks were really sunken in. And I thought to myself, I really hope, A, that he makes weight, and B, that he makes it safely and that he's fully replenished by Saturday, because you never want to see a fighter going in there sort of depleted from day one. And he looks, I mean, do you remember when he had to be coaxed out of not fighting at welterweight? He was absolutely adamant he was going to stick at welterweight, and then eventually they managed to convince him to move up to lightweight. But now he's having
featherweight.
Featherweight to lightweight.
For years. Yeah. And he would move up, and he would have a great performance at lightweight. And
I'm going back to featherweight.
Yeah, I'm going back to featherweight. Like, what?
But now he's obviously filled out more because he's now used to fighting at lightweight. Yep. But now he's obviously still very, very tight at 155. Yeah. So fingers crossed for him, and everything goes well for him overnight, and there's no issues. If anything does happen, Arman Sarukian is in town.
Yep.
He's the backup fighter, and he'll be looking to make 155 pounds on the dot tomorrow morning. And who knows? Stranger things have happened. This is International Fight Week. Strange things have happened at International Fight Week.
Might come in.
Hanato Moicano. Well, that was one of the lines of media day where they talked to Moicano and they said, "What do you think?" They brought in Arman Sarukian to be the backup fighter, and he said, "That's because the UFC don't want to give me any more money." Someone had done it again.
He was great. Moicano
has been the star of the show this week. He's been fantastic.
Well, let's talk about the rest of the press conference. I mean, listen, we've seen Pantoja, Kai Kara-France before. I think we know this boils down to Kai Kara-France's power. You know what I mean? Like, it just does. You know what I mean? He has that ability, but I don't think there's need to break down more than that. Like, Pantoja is the more well-rounded fighter. I love the fact that Pantoja today said pound-for-pound rankings are bullshit. Like, I deserve to be higher ranked up there. I love to hear that fire from him because he's kind of he's been kind of a quiet champion and maybe, a disrespected champion, and, has a couple guys in Brandon Royval and Joshua Van that want to give him some attention and give him some love. They feel disrespected as well. I like Kai Kara-France a lot. It's just tough. Pantoja's, I pick him against anybody at 25 right now. It's just tough, but it boils down to his power. But as far as whether it be that, whether it be anything else in the press conference, Royval, like Joshua Van, we haven't seen him in that spot a lot. He's not a man of many words, but fortunately for him, his fighting style doesn't require a lot of words, because if you like
stick
MMA,
around long enough, does he?
Yeah, you like watching that man fight. I love Brandon Roy. So this to me is like I don't even want to say an underrated fight, because it's a great fight. It's third on International Fight Week, but Royval and Van could be an absolute banger of a fight, man. I'm looking for that. Dariush and Moicano, come on, they were just hilarious. They're both two of the best dudes in there. Even Dariush was having to laugh at Moicano and the things he was saying. And you got Peyton Talbot up there against Felipe Lima. Again, two guys of, not a lot of words, but I know you particularly are pretty high on Felipe Lima.
Yeah.
Even though Peyton Talbot's stock took a big hit from last time out, but I think people are still very, very high on him. But you think this might be another chance to step in a pothole maybe for Peyton Talbot. Felipe Lima is a stud.
Yeah, I think with Felipe Lima, I've seen him win the bantamweight title for Octagon in Europe, and he is all gas, no brakes. He really is. He's relentless, and he will stand and strike with you. He will take you to the mat. He's very quick, and he's great in the scrambles. He's just a pain. Like, if you're fighting him, you're not gonna get a second's rest against him.
Right.
He's one of those, And the thing about this fight is he's had 2 fights in the UFC. First one was short notice. He came in on short notice. He might even have been on like 24-hour notice, if I remember rightly. Came in and won, fighting at 145 pounds. I assumed then that he would move down to bantamweight, but he didn't. He had another one at 145 pounds. Let me pull up his record while I'm talking to you. But yeah, he's had 2 at 145 pounds. They're not his natural weight class. So he beats Mohamed Naimov, who is no mug.
Stud.
Subs him in the 3rd round.
Stud.
Miles Johns, again, no mug.
Nope.
Decisions him. Both of those fights were fighting above his optimum weight class. This weekend against Peyton Talbot, he's going to be doing it at 135 pounds, which is his best weight class. He's big for 135 pounds. and he's big, he's quick, he's powerful, he's excellent on the mat. And if the fight goes to the floor, then I think Peyton Talbot's in a lot of trouble. But we know that Peyton can stand and strike, and Felipe is quite happy to entertain that. But I think if you're Felipe, you're wanting to get this fight down quickly. But yeah, he's a lot of fun to watch, and I think it's one of those fights. Whoever wins this fight, there's going to be a fair degree of excitement around them moving forwards. But both of them, I think, have got loads of talent. So I think they're both stars of the future.
Should be a fun night, man. I'm looking forward to it. Hall of Fame, I can see the red carpet starting to pick up over there. Cold Coffee's been set up and getting squeezed in there. We're starting to get some people moving in that direction. I won't talk a lot about the Hall of Fame just because, by the time most people listen to this, it'll already be in the can. I will say I'm going to go home and watch it. We're not allowed to actually – I've mentioned this before. We're not allowed to actually film anything in there. So because of there's no real reason to be there if you're not creating any content. I'd much rather watch it at home. But I always watch it. I think it's great. I think some people are critical of the Hall of Fame. I'll just be honest with you. I'm a massive supporter of it, man. I think it's a big deal. You see the emotions and the honor they have. And I know the criticism. This is Dana's friends. This is, whatever you want to call it. And I get the clear omissions that should be included in there and all those things. But to me, this is still a big deal. I will say I'm happy that Mark Kerr's in there. I think the Smash Machine is absolutely deserving. It did feel a little bit commercially convenient that the movie is coming out, you know what I mean? And I, maybe I shouldn't look at it that way. Maybe if it's if that's what it took to get over the finish line, then so be it. If that was the little nudge it took, because Mark Kerr, man, if you were around, and I like you got 2 modern wings going in, you got 2 pioneer wings going in. I don't think it only has to be 1 per year. I think there's some names to get caught up on that deserve to be in there. So I don't know. I am happy because first of all, I thought Kerr was a monster. I'm one of these guys, obviously, that watched from the very beginning. I remember these eras, and obviously him and the Coleman era, and that was the monster wrestler era, where that just changed everything. And we've seen the phases and the development, and Kerr was as scary as it got. You know what I mean? And then I remember the original Smashing Machine, which if you haven't seen the original documentary, I always tell people go seek it out. It ain't the easiest watch, you know what I mean? It's not a feel good sure do love me some mixed martial arts and sure do love everything around. It's hard to watch, and which makes me really intrigued to see about how this remake is played out. I know the one preview that came out, it didn't look like they were pussyfooting around the difficultiness of it, you know what I mean? It looked like they were tackling that head on. So I'm happy he's getting in there. But obviously Amanda Nunes, I mean, at worst, second best fighter of all time in the women's division. I don't know how she's not the best.
At worst, she's first, I think.
I kind of agree with you, to be honest with you. I always say Cyborg deserves to be in the conversation, but it's tough when they had a head-to-head result and she got knocked out. You know what I mean? But Cyborg's longevity is incredible. You know what I mean? So it's sometimes you go, does the longevity overtake a minute of fighting? You know what I mean? But
I think it becomes more of an issue if they're not both at their peak when they met.
Right.
And I think Cyborg was still very much, if not at the absolute peak of her powers, pretty close.
Exactly.
Pretty close. So,
and that was just one of the greatest chaotic minutes of
fighting. Was it 57 seconds of madness, wasn't it? It was absolutely.
So Amanda Nunes, a clear one. Robbie Lawler, I mean, come on. I mean, Robbie Lawler already in there in the fight wing, of course. Yeah. But obviously deserved to be in there on his own. Vitor Belfort, special to me because, there's that picture that exists of me and him when I'm 19 years old. I mean, the very first UFC I ever attended, I took a picture with Vitor Belfort. Now we're both men of a certain age, and here he is in the Hall of Fame. So I'm looking forward to shaking his hand. Obviously, him and I had some twists and turns of our own personal relationship along the way. He lived here in Las Vegas for a long time when he trained here and had a good relationship. And then, of course, we had an incident that occurred in Brazil where, tensions got a little bit high, but him and I, conveniently enough, flew on an airplane together. It just happened, and we just talked it all out, and he apologized, and I told him it wasn't necessary to apologize. I got it. And, but it was just it's been a weird, twisted, from the guy I took a picture with when I was 19 years old to all the here. It's cool. So that was cool for me. Adesanya and Gastelum, dude, I mean, amazing that fight. I remember, and I talk anytime I talk about I'll get goosebumps. I literally remember because where we sit in press row, you're looking over at the red corner, and he's in the red corner. And at the start of round 5, sometimes you're looking at different things. I'm not always looking at the fighter that's coming out, but I happened to be looking right at him when he was like, "I'm ready to die," and you could read his lips, and I was just like, holy shit, did he just say what I thought? You know what I mean? And obviously Gastelum, I've loved Kelvin Gastelum. I've told this story a million times too, but I'll never forget because that's back when we used to go interview all the Ultimate Fighter guys, like on the first day, and went and interviewed all the Ultimate Fighter guys, and here he is, like 20 years old, and I'm just like, this dude is gonna get waxed. I'm like,
no way this guy's gonna win.
Why is this guy even in the house? This poor dude is just gonna get. And then here he is, and I love the guy, man. He's such a nice guy, and he's been in some wars. That's amazing. Charles Oliveira, the Forrest Griffin Community Award. I don't think he'll be here to accept. Maybe he'll roll in real quick and just say, hey, like I said, he looked a little. I mean, he was in the building an hour ago, so maybe he sticks around.
They might have filmed a bit of VT with him behind the scenes or something.
Maybe that, just to have that. That would be bad. And then Craig Piligian, obviously, the Ultimate Fighter. You can't minimize that. But I mean, obviously, all deserving. Anyone that stands out to you personally, or just that you're most excited to hear from tonight.
Honestly, and like, mad respect to all of them, but Craig Piligian, strangely, because I think that being in the UK. The UFC, when it was sort of first introduced to the UK, we had UFC Unleashed on Bravo, which was basically this sort of niche channel, just mostly had sort of soft pornography on it most of the time. But it had
nothing wrong with that.
Well, that's how I stumbled upon UFC. No, but it's just by chance, just after the Red Shoe Diaries or something, it probably was. But yeah, but you had UFC Unleashed, and which is kind of a wrap-up highlights kind of program, but they started showing the Ultimate Fighter, and we had Tough One, obviously.
Yeah.
Got on Tough One, and the thing with Piligian, like, I'm not a massive watcher of television, right? I love Survivor.
Yeah.
I love the challenge. Shout out Ben the Bane Davis, by the way, going on the challenge. Shout out to Ben the Bane Davis, you madman, going on that. My favourite reality TV show, and the Ultimate Fighter. But yeah, like Craig Piligian was part of the first 3 seasons of Survivor. He got the thing up and running and turned it into what it was. And I love the story, and I love hearing him tell the story as well, because I remember that when Fox put that documentary out, and I think it was it leading into UFC 200? I feel like it might have been leading into UFC 200, where it was basically the story of the UFC to that point. And they talked about the Ultimate Fighter. There's lots of talking heads. You've got the Fertitas, you've got Dana, you've got Forrest Griffin and all the rest of it. And Craig Piligian, and he was talking about the speech that Dana made. And he started choking up.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. But like, that's how much it meant to him personally. And he's had he's won Emmy Awards here, there, and everywhere for stuff. Like he
says the greatest speech in the history of reality television.
Yeah, and it was fantastic. And I've been back and watched it. I wrote a piece for the mag about it, and we actually did a piece on the speech. I've pulled the whole speech out, and we've included that as a little box
Very
out
cool.
because Piligian did an event a couple of weeks back. I think it was probably in LA, where they were sat on some stalls. It was. I
love that, man.
It was him, DC, Chael.
Well, it was for the launch of the new season, right?
That was it.
They were at Red Rock out here, right?
That was it.
Yep.
So I've made use of some of those quotes from that as well, and. But yeah, like
I love that you're doing that, man. I hope you can keep. I know you got to keep it current. You know what I mean? But I hope you can keep giving nods to the past as well, because I feel like there's educational.
You have to, because like there are new people coming to this sport all the time, and when we talk about soccer in the UK, like us people of a certain age have to remind some of the younger people that they list all these incredible stats, like Premier League stats. Well, the Premier League only started in 1992. There was like the top division of English football's been going since the 1800s. Right, and people don't seem to understand this. The UFC did, there was a lot that happened pre Conor McGregor. That's kind of the similar line. You've got
100%.
You've got it's like before and after Jesus Christ, isn't it? It's like before and after Conor McGregor.
Well, dude, I remember.
That's the first time those two have been mentioned in the same sentence together, by the way. But there is a line in the sand, right? So, like, there is
BC and AC.
Right. So, but you've got like the amount of interest that Conor brought to the sport and exploded it, and Ronda as well.
Sure.
The pair of them combined, they took the sport into the mainstream, right? And you've got all these new fans, but I think it's important that people understand where this sport has come from. Some of these names, so that when you get someone like Robbie Lawler standing up in the crowd, and you don't get people go, who?
Yep. Robbie
Lawler's never not the hardest man in the room. Do you know what I mean? If he's in the room, he's the hardest man in the room.
Yep.
Right? And anybody who's watched that man fight, whether it be through the early days, the early Zuffa days, Maybe not when he fell asleep in the press conference, but
no, that's pretty gangster too.
Maybe not that, but you know, as you say, his fight that's already in the Hall of Fame. You know, we were both front row for that.
Yeah.
That moment at the end of round 4, where they both look, man, look at that,
dude, I'm telling
you, right?
Yeah.
Goosebumps are up. I'm doing that thing The Rock does that's really annoying when he points to his arms, right? And but
Rock, I'm just like you.
Yeah, we're all virtually identical. But like that moment will live, like, for anybody who saw that live, and what it was just like a life experience watching that fight. It was like a Rocky movie, just like Bisping versus Anderson Silva was. Anybody who watched that fight live, that was like a Rocky movie as well. And teaching people about that stuff helps them to appreciate what they're seeing now.
Agreed.
Because like skill level is going through the roof. So the fighters of yesteryear, skill-wise, don't have what the fighters of today have got. They don't have the facilities. They don't have the know-how.
And that's not a criticism. That's just natural generation, natural progress.
Correct. But at their level, they were the best of the best.
Yep.
And they had to do it without a lot of the safety stuff that the fighters now have got. But yeah, I think it's important that you have a nod to the history, because that's what really gives credibility to the wins of today.
Yep.
You know, so
100%. Well, I love it. I can actually hear 300 violin orchestra playing in the background as they're going through rehearsals. Which
Vitor must be nearby.
Vitor Belfort. That must be his walkout music tonight. Deservedly so, man. Yeah, I'm excited for this. I'm excited for it. I really am. I think, you know, like I said, I know there are criticisms of it, and I understand it, but I think it does mean a lot. You see these guys when they get selected and they get honored and they get surprised and they tear up in their eyes and it means something to them. Like, you're going to be remembered for the rest of the time. You know what I mean? Like, your contribution to the sport will be remembered for the rest of the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, anybody who does any kind of job, right? Most people, when they're in a job, they feel like they're doing a thankless task a lot of the time. And if ever it gets to a point where someone just takes them to the side and says, do you know what? Thanks so much for what you do. You do a really good job. That means so much to people.
It does.
Doesn't matter whether whether you work in a store, whether you're a journalist, whether whatever it is, whatever walk of life you're in.
I feel a little bit appreciated.
Someone sits you down and lets you know that you're appreciated. It absolutely makes that person's day, makes that person's month, whatever it is, right? This is that on, nearly said on steroids, but we are not doing that anymore.
On commission-approved testosterone.
See, that's me going back into history again. I should be doing that. No, but you know what I mean.
I know what
you know what I mean.
Amped up to a different level.
To the max. Turned up to 11.
Oh, man. Well, Simon, I appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, it's been a long day already for Cold Coffee, and he had to get set up and dive in there. I know you're going to go collect a little bit of audio as well, so I will let you guys go get to that. I'm going to go head home and take care of my dog. My wife and kid aren't here, so I've got pet duty to handle and that sort of thing. I'm not used to that, so I'm gonna go handle that. And man, should be a great one tomorrow. Obviously, big official weigh-ins in the morning, as you said. All eyes will be on Charles Oliveira, of course. Look forward to the ceremonial weigh-ins. Maybe we get that last little bit of spark. Maybe the respect resides, just a little bit for that one. You know what I mean? And we get to see a little bit of it. What we shall see. Regardless, it's going to be a great event. Myself and Cold Coffee will get together and talk about it on the and a half episode over on Monday for everybody over at patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. So look forward to that. Look forward to everything that's happening International Fight Week. I'm sure you'll have a ton of content coming from a million different places. UFC X, I'll be out there tomorrow for a little bit. There's always so much stuff going on there. Looking forward to that. So in a minute, soak it all in, enjoy all the content, and thanks for listening.
Want to keep your personal number private but still stay connected? With Line 2, you can get a second phone line right on your device with a super simple app and no need for another phone. Whether it's for online shopping, dating, or shielding your main number from spam, Line 2 is an easy way to manage it all. Ready for peace of mind without breaking the bank? Call, text, block, and more for only $9.99. Get started with line2.com/audio or download Line 2 in any app store today. Line 2, your second line simplified. Ugh, spam calls. Sound familiar? Introducing Line 2. Get a second phone number right on your existing phone. Imagine discounts, appointments, online forms. Handle it all without giving out your personal number. It's like having a secret weapon against spam. And when those unwanted calls sneak through, boom, blocked. No more interruptions, no more stress. Stay connected, stay protected. Keep your main number safe and out of harm's way. Ready to take back your phone? Visit line2.com/audio or download Line 2 in the App Store today.